Zora Pop-Up Theater Livestream.
All the preparation we did for this mic, but I have to stand on my two toes because Nico's a little taller than me. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so excited to share with you the work that Nico and DJ and I did together. Alice Walker called Zora Neale Hurston the genius of the South, and she put that on Zora Neale Hurston's tombstone because Zora Neale Hurston was buried in an unmarked grave and died in obscurity and penniless. Alice Walker, the author of The Color Purple, is one of the people who really brought Zora back to our consciousness and made her the celebrated person she is today. Of course, in her heyday during the Harlem Renaissance, Zora was definitely an important literary figure at the time and very well known. Again, we've heard she was an anthropologist, a folklorist, a poet, and a novelist. So in thinking about trying to share Zora with you all theatrically, we found the essay called How It Feels to Be Colored Like Me, which was written or published, I would say, in 1928. And here Zora really talks about her relationship with her race. And as Dr. Vaz told us earlier in the day, some of her views were not really aligned with the Harlem Renaissance folks. So she had her own views and her own ways, and her sense of, he used the word self-reliance, and that's exactly what I thought of when I first encountered this essay, the self-reliance, the identity that Zora has for herself. And it's so much related in my mind to her growing up in Eatonville and that being part of her development. But you're going to hear all that in Zora's own words. We're going to be hearing from Nico Eubanks, who is in the theater department and who is also performing this weekend the true story, the true history of the tragic life and triumphant death of Julia Pastrana, the ugliest woman in the world. It's the longest title, and we have to always say it. We can't use a shorthand according to the rights that we got. So thank you, Christine. I wouldn't be able to really memorize that one. So you can see Nico there and in various theater productions, and you can see DJ on Tuesday evenings coming up. There's a student recital. There's the holiday choir concert, there's the holiday band concert, and there's the Messiah sing-along, and you can see DJ and all those. And if you are interested in art, theater, or music at the college, please come and see me afterwards, and I'd love to connect you in all the opportunities we have. But now I present to you Zora.
I am colored, but I offer nothing in the way of extenuating circumstances, except the fact that I am the only Negro in the United States whose grandfather on my mother's side was not an Indian chief. I remember the very day that I became colored. Up to my 13th year, I lived in the little Negro town of Eatonville, Florida. It is exclusively a colored town. The only white people I knew passed through the town going to or coming from Orlando. The native whites rode dusty horses. The northern tourists chugged down the sandy village in automobiles. The town knew the southerners and never stopped cane chewing when they passed. But the northerners were something else again. They were peered at cautiously from behind the curtain by the timid. The more venturesome would come out to the porch and watch them go past and got just as much pleasure out of the tourists as the tourists got out of the village. The front porch might seem a daring place for the rest of the town, but it was a gallery seat for me. My favorite place was atop the gatepost, proscenium box for a born first nighter. Not only did I enjoy the show, but I didn't mind the actors knowing that I did. I usually spoke to them in passing. I'd wave at them, and when they returned my salute, I would say something like this. Howdy do? Well, I thank you. Where are you going? Usually, the automobile or the horse paused at this, and after a queer exchange of compliments, I would probably go a piece of the way with them, as we say in the farthest Florida. If one of my family happened to come to the front in time to see me, of course, negotiations would be rudely broken off. But even so, it is clear that I was the very first welcome to our state Floridian, and I do hope the Miami Chamber of Commerce will please take notice. During this period, white people differed from color to me only in that they rode through the town and never lived there. They liked to hear me speak pieces and sing and wanted to see me dance the parsamila, and gave me generously of their small silver for doing these things, which seemed strange to me, for I wanted to do them so much that I needed bribing to stop. Even only they didn't know it. The colored people gave no dimes. They deplored any joyful tendencies in me. But I was their Zora nevertheless. I belonged to them, to the nearby hotels, to the county. Everybody's Zora. But changes came in the family when I was 13, and I was sent to school in Jacksonville. I left Eatonville, the town of the oleanders, as Zora. When I disembarked from the riverboat at Jacksonville, she was no more. It seemed that I had suffered a sea change. I was not Zora of Orange County anymore. I was now a little colored girl. I found it out in certain ways, in my heart as well as in the mirror. I became a fast brown, warranted not to rub nor run. But I am not tragically colored. There was no great sorrow dammed up in my soul, nor lurking behind my eyes. I do not mind at all. I do not belong to the sobbing school of Negrohood, who hold that nature somehow has given them a low-down, dirty deal, and whose feelings are all but about it. Even in the helter-skelter skirmish that is my life, I have seen that the world is to the strong, regardless of a little pigmentation more or less. No, I do not weep at the world. I am too busy sharpening my oyster knife. Someone is always at my elbow reminding me that I am the granddaughter of slaves. It fails to register a depression in me. Slavery is 60 years in the past. The operation was successful, and the patient is doing well, thank you. The terrible struggle that made me an American out of a potential slave said, on the line. The Reconstruction said, get set. And the generation before said, go. I am off to a flying start, and I must not halt in the stretch to look behind and weep. Slavery is the price I paid through my ancestors for it. No one on earth had ever any greater chance for glory. The world to be won and nothing to be lost. It is thrilling to think, to know that for any act of mine, I shall get twice as much praise or twice as much blame. It is quite exciting to hold the center of the national stage, with the spectators not knowing whether to laugh or to weep. The position of my white neighbor is much more difficult. No brown specter pulls up a chair beside me when I sit down to eat. No dark ghost thrusts its leg against mine in bed. The game of keeping what one has is never so exciting as the game of getting. I do not always feel colored. Even now, I often achieve the unconscious Zora of Eatonville before the Higura. I feel most colored when I am thrown up against a sharp white background. For instance, at Barnard, besides the water of the Hudson, I feel my race. Among the 1,000 white persons, I am a dark rock surged upon and overswept. But through it all, I remain myself. When covered by the waters I am, and the ebb but reveals me again. Sometimes it is the other way around. A white person is set down in our midst, but the contrast is just as sharp for me. For instance, when I sit in the drafty basement that is the New World Cabaret with a white person, my color comes. We enter chatting about any little nothing that we have in common and are seated by the jazz waiters. In the abrupt way that jazz orchestras have, this one plunges into a number. It loses no time in circumlocutions, but gets right down to business. It constricts the thorax and splits the heart with its tempo and narcotic harmonies. This orchestra grows rambunctious, rears on its hind legs, and attacks the tonal veil with primitive fury, rending it, clawing it until it breaks through the jungle beyond. I follow them heathen, follow them exultingly. I dance wildly inside myself. I yell within, I whoop, I shake my assegai above my head, and I hurl it true to the mark. I am in a jungle, and living in the jungle way. My face is painted red and yellow, and my body is painted blue. My pulse is throbbing like a war drum. I want to slaughter something, give pain, give death to what? I do not know. But the piece ends. The men of the orchestra wipe their lips and rest their fingers. I creep back slowly to the veneer we call civilization with the last tone and find the white friend sitting motionless in his seat, smoking calmly. Good music they have here, he remarks, drumming the table with his fingertips. Music. The great blobs of purple and red emotion have not touched him. He has only heard what I felt. He is far away, and I see him but dimly across the ocean and the continent that have fallen between us. He is so pale with his whiteness, then I am so colored. At certain times, I have no race. I am me. When I set my hat at a certain angle and saunter down 7th Avenue, Harlem City, feeling as snooty as the lions in front of the 42nd Street Library, for instance. So far, my feelings are concerned. Peggy Hopkins Joyce on the Boul' Miche with her gorgeous raiment, stately carriage, knees knocking together in the most aristocratic manner, has nothing on me. The cosmic Zora emerges. I belong to no race nor time. I am the eternal feminine with this string of beads. I have no separate feeling about being an American citizen and colored. I am merely a fragment of the great soul that surges within the boundaries. My country, right or wrong. Sometimes I feel discriminated against, but it does not make me angry. It merely astonishes me. How can any deny themselves the pleasure of my company? It's beyond me. But in the main, I feel like a brown bag of miscellany propped against the wall. Against the wall in company with other bags, white, red, and yellow. Pour out the contents, and there is discovered a jumble of small things, priceless and worthless. A first water diamond, an empty spool, bits of broken glass, lengths of string, a key to a door long since crumbled away, a rusty knife blade, old shoes save for a road that never was and never will be, a nail bent under the weight, too heavy for any nail, a dried flower or two still a fragrant. In your hand is the brown bag. On the ground before you is the jumble it held. So much like the jumble in the bags could they be emptied, that all might be dumped in a single heap, and the bags refilled without altering the content of any greatly. A bit of colored glass more or less would not matter. Perhaps that is how the great stuffer of bags filled them in the first place. Who knows? Thank you.
Anyone have any questions or thoughts for our performers?
What was the piece of music?
It was improvised.
Oh.
No, totally improvised. Stunning. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.